In the business world, the stakes don't get any higher than at ExxonMobil. As the company's CEO, Rex Tillerson stays grounded, drawing strength from the same core values he developed at his university. Born in Wichita Falls in 1952, Rex's dad was an executive with the Boy Scouts of America, which took their family to Vernon, Texas, Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Huntsville, Texas. Rex was the ultimate Boy Scout.
I think kind of the highlight of my youth and adolescent years were my achievements in scouting from my perspective today.
The Eagle Scout graduated from Huntsville High in 1970 and headed to UT.
I decided I wanted to major in engineering. Kind of followed my older sister's footsteps to the band. Because the university was so large and so many people at the university, the band really gave me a home in terms of a circle of friends.
As a sophomore, he was invited into the Tejas Club, a diverse group that prompted him to examine his values.
Whatever you thought truths you held to be true, when you went to the Tejas Club, you could count on they were going to get challenged.
The 1975 engineering graduate was recruited by Exxon. After 2 years on the job, he found himself managing a group of drilling rigs near Tyler.
And that was a lot of money being spent and a lot of people relying upon me to give them direction every day as to what needed to be done next. And I think that's the first time all of a sudden I realized, gee, I really am in charge of something here.
As bigger professional responsibilities came his way, Rex met Renda House in 1983.
We both had been previously married, and I had twins, and she had a son. And so when we married, we had instant triplets because the boys were all within 6 months of being the same age.
5 years later, Robert, Michael, and Cody got a fourth brother, Tyler, whom Rex and Renda had together. Rex was named president of Exxon Yemen in 1995 and took charge of Exxon's ventures in Russia in 1998.
And I think it's probably some of the high points in the development of my career were those assignments, those early assignments where I worked internationally. And the things I learned there have served me well ever since.
He's had an accomplished 30-plus year career, but perhaps his biggest thrill was the 2005 culmination of the $6.5 billion Sakhalin-1 production project in far eastern Russia.
To see them turn the valve on the first barrel of oil from Sakhalin and see it actually now being delivered to the market, that was a high moment for me anyway.
In 2004, Rex was named president of ExxonMobil Corporation. 2 years later, he became chairman and CEO of the 82,000 employee company. This life member of the Texas Exes has been active in the Longhorn Alumni Band, the Engineering Foundation Advisory Council, and the Tejas Club Foundation. He also serves as chairman of the American Petroleum Institute and is on the executive board of Boy Scouts of America.
Scouting has always been a part of my life. I continue to believe that it's the best thing going for young men today, so I've always been supportive of sustaining the program, growing the program, so that it remains relevant to young people today.
Tonight, we honor a man who took the values he learned at UT to the very pinnacle of the business world.
You attend UT, you really get 2 educations, and only one of them's in the books.
Rex Tillerson, distinguished alumnus of the University of Texas at Austin.
Well, I think I'm the last person standing between Cappy McGuire and his task of making these jackets more burnt than they already are. I don't know how many of you remember your commencement speaker, but I remember mine quite well. It was Neil A. Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon. Neil Armstrong's an Eagle Scout, and he's also an engineer, so I guess there was some kind of divine message there for me. And of course, you can imagine Neil Armstrong spoke about frontiers and challenging your frontiers and conquering your frontiers, to all of those sea of graduates that were sitting on the South Mall that evening. Well, I can never imagine what the next 32 years are going to hold for me, and some of the places I've been and some of the places I've worked make the moon look pretty attractive. and maybe we'll go look there someday. But my education experience at the University of Texas at Austin was complete in every sense of the word of higher education. And I think it takes some number of years before you realize that, because when you first leave the campus, it's not entirely apparent what all of this is going to lead to, but upon reflection, you then begin to understand the significance of what happens here during your time here and its lasting impact upon you. Certainly, I came here with a set of values that were instilled in me by my parents and my sisters and my extended family, and that kind of provided the raw ingredients on which to build. But earning a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from one of the preeminent engineering colleges in the country opened many, many doors for me, and I had many, many choices at the time of my graduation. So my professors in the engineering school did a pretty good job of working on some of this raw material, and I was so pleased to see Dean Glona, I know he's back in the back of the room, whom was one of my professors in the engineering school. And it kind of shows you the quality of the engineering education you receive at UT, that a slightly above average graduate could enter the workforce, though, and be highly competitive and successful. And I think that's a tribute to the quality of the education in the engineering college here, and I'll be forever in their gratitude for that. But beyond my academic education, as I said, there was a certain rounding that goes on here in terms of preparing you for your lifelong pursuits. And while there was a lot of activities that certainly had an impact on me, two organizations in particular were very important to my development. Being a member of the show band of the Southwest required an enormous commitment of time, and you spend 15 to 20 hours a week under the tutelage and the leadership of a man who demanded perfection, and he got it, or else. Vincent Ardenino, a legend for this university. But the lessons that you learn, and I learned from that experience and reflecting back upon it, is that it really is true that hard work, dedication, a persistent pursuit of perfection does lead to an accomplishment that only others can aspire to. And that's certainly been the record in the history of the show band of the Southwest, and it remains today, that it is an organization that other university bands only aspire to be. And much of that is attributable to Vince Donino and the legacy he's left with the university. The second organization that was tremendously important to me was the Tejas Club. The Tejas Club, I lived at the teepee at 2600 Rio Grande for 2 years with a very diverse group of outstanding young men. I think I was probably the bottom of the list to be able to sneak in. But we had young men of all walks of life, all majors, business majors, pre-med, law. We had Rhodes Scholars, sociology majors, psychology majors, theological majors. And the highlight of every week were the weekly coffees, where we would have outside speakers come in at 10 o'clock and spend a few minutes with us talking, and then open discussion. From Bob Bullock to Madeline Murray O'Hare to John LeMaitre to others who will remain unnamed. But the real value came after those people left, and many of us would stay up long through the night debating what we had heard that night, and kind of challenging each other on what we thought we heard that night. And I think it gave you a great appreciation for the diverse views and the value of those diverse views. And listening to others and hearing what they had to say is going to shape and pound and anneal your own beliefs, and will make you much more committed to those that you finally resolve are in fact what you hold to be true. There's a verse that I have carried with me most of my adult life, and it's from 1 Peter chapter 5. Humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up in due time. And I thank you tonight for your kind recognition and this gracious recognition. Thank you.